What's up, y'all? It's Celeste. That's right, I'm back with an actual video with actual content that isn't just me telling you why I don't have an actual video. This is going to be me talking about being off of testosterone for 9 months. For those who are new here, I have kind of a convoluted journey with testosterone, and I actually have a little timeline that I made, so I'll stick that up here while I explain it a little bit. So I went on low-dose T in spring of 2017 for about 3 months, then I went off for about 6 months, then went back on at the beginning of 2018 at kind of varying doses for about 5 months, went off for a month, went back on for a month, went back off for a few months, and then went back on for like about 2 weeks in December. So my last shot was in December of 2018, and I've now been off of it since then, so that's about 9 months. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what changes have happened since then, what has kind of reverted back since I've been off T, what has stayed the same, all that kind of good stuff. So first of all, I want to say that everything that I'm going to say in this video is my personal experience. That would be true for anybody's video about being on or off of T. But the fact that I have been off and on it a few times also is something to keep in mind when I'm talking about what has happened in the 9 months since I've been off of T, because maybe it would be different if I had been on T for like 9.5 months straight and then went off of it for 9 months instead of being off and on it with the on part being 9.5 months total, which is what I did, and then being off of it for 9 months. So it's just a little bit different. It's also probably very different from somebody who like maybe was on T like at a full dose for like 5 years and then went off for 9 months. It might be completely different. So just keep all that in mind. As always, this is just like one person's experience, but I do hope that it will be helpful. So the reason that I did the off and on thing is because there are some effects of T that I really did want, some effects that I really didn't want. Also, some things are permanent, some things are impermanent, and other things are kind of in between where they don't revert back completely to how you were pre-T, but they might kind of go back somewhat. And so for me, it's felt the best to kind of take things slow and give myself a chance to get used to the changes, and also give myself a chance to go off of T for long enough to kind of have my hormone levels settle down a little bit. So I'm able to see kind of how things end up. So voice change is the number one thing that I did want from T. That's typically a permanent change because your vocal folds actually thicken and grow from testosterone. But it can kind of go back a little bit. I've heard some people say that theirs went back a lot, but typically it's a fairly permanent change. And so that's what I was hoping that would happen, and that is what has seemed to happen. It doesn't seem like my voice has gone up since I've been off of T for 9 months, and that's a great thing. I will do my requisite voice timeline here and let you hear that a little bit. I think I'm going to stick up one that is like, that kind of skips ahead from pre-T to maybe like 6 months on T, because the first few months I did have some subtle changes, but it didn't really kind of kick in until a ways in. So after that, it'll be like monthly. So here you go. Today is March 14th, 2017, and this is my voice pre-T. Today is March 22nd, 2018, and this is my voice 6 months on T. Today is April 21st, 2018, and this is my voice 7 months on T. Today is May 21st, 2018, and this is my voice 8 months on T. Today is July 27th, 2018, and this is my voice 9 months on T. Today is December 24th, 2018, and this is my voice 9 months and 2 weeks on T. Today is September 20th, 2019, and this is my voice 9 months off T. I was taking singing lessons for pretty much the whole time my voice was dropping, and also for like the first half of this year when I was not on T, but at my last lesson with my voice teacher, who unfortunately moved after that, that's why it was my last lesson with him, I asked him whether he thought my voice had gone up at all since being off of T, and he didn't think it had. And I think it probably hadn't also. It's possible that maybe like the lowest notes that I was able to sing at any point, I'm not always able to sing those. And part of that could be from being off of tea, but it could also be just from settling, because your voice does have to kind of settle after it changes. I did just start taking from a new teacher, and his impression of my voice is kind of that it's like sort of in between tenor and contralto. I've only been to him a couple times, so he hasn't really heard like everything my voice can do at this point. But we'll kind of see. I do want to talk to him about it and kind of get his impression of my range and everything. I do tend to still talk higher on my voice than I really need to, I think, and than I would like to. It's basically just a habit thing, and I should be practicing not doing that. I would actually like my voice to be a little bit lower, and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And like I said, I'm going to talk to my new voice teacher and see what he thinks, because I already can't sing that well high in my range, and I don't want to lose the notes that I have up there. But it may be that I just, because I'm not that good at singing up there, maybe I actually can hit notes higher than that. I just don't know how yet. So it might not really be a matter of my actual range so much as my like ability to use my range. So I'm going to kind of figure that out going forward. Moving on to hair growth, which is the number one thing I did not want from tea. That's one of those kind of in-between things where it typically doesn't revert back all the way to how you were pre-tea, but it can thin out and lighten and grow more slowly than it does when you're on tea. And that has thankfully been my experience. When I was on tea, I had a definite increase in facial hair. I still never had like a full amount of hair that like I would have had like a full beard or even like a full mustache. But I had a decent amount of darker, thicker hairs that were growing across the whole area of like my lower face. So I'm gonna put a little video comparison here. On the left is me last summer, and I had actually been off of tea for about a month when I took this video. This is after not shaving for 1 day. And then on the right is me now, and this is 4 days after shaving. I still have some darker, thicker hairs. I still have them kind of around my chin and sort of mustache, like corner areas, especially, and then like my jawline and neck, I have some. So I still have them. I still feel the need to shave all of that, and I do that, but I don't have to do it every day. I basically can do it like every several days, and nobody would really even notice. So it's definitely calmed down a lot. Now, in my ideal world, I wouldn't have any at all, but the amount that I have is not that bad, and it has definitely reverted back considerably from when I was on tea, even though it hasn't reverted back entirely, so I'm very happy about that. Body hair has been kind of the same, but I think a little bit more subtle and kind of varies more depending on the specific area. So first I'll show you my legs. One of these is going to be me last summer when I was on tea, and then the other one is going to be me today. So like my mid-shin to ankle area is pretty much the same. It hasn't really lightened or thinned out at all. It's basically just as dark as it was. Once you get up to my knee and kind of up my thigh, I still have more hair in that area than I did before I took tea, but it definitely doesn't look as dark or as thick to me as it did when I was on tea. So I think it has thinned out, but just not my entire leg. It's just like the top half mostly has kind of thinned back out and lightened. So that's kind of interesting. And then on my stomach, torso, chest area, it's pretty much the same. I mean, it's maybe slightly lighter or like slightly thinned out than it was when I was on tea, but it's not really that different. It's pretty much the same. And it never really got to be a lot in that area, or particularly noticeable other than like right around my belly button. Like I said, my acne is a lot better than it was when I was on tea, but it's not really from stopping tea. It actually was really bad for several months after stopping tea. It's because I went on Accutane, and that cleared up my skin. I still have some bumps and some like red marks left over, but I haven't had any new acne since I took Accutane, so that really has nothing to do with tea. So unfortunately, I can't really give you too much information about that other than to say that my acne did not get better when I stopped taking tea. So that's probably disappointing to some people, but my acne was actually like probably the worst that it had been in a long time, like in the fall of last year, and I was not on tea at that time. Another thing I unfortunately can't be too helpful on is muscle growth and fat redistribution kind of stuff. And I know that's probably disappointing to some people because that's something that I've gotten asked about by several people. And by the way, thank you to all the people who left like comments and things that you wanted me to cover in this video on my previous video where I asked for that. I'm not going to name anybody who did that just because I'm never quite sure who wants me to do that and who doesn't, because it's kind of a sensitive topic. But thank you all for that. So the reason that I can't really be too helpful on this is because I feel like there are just way too many variables in play for me to say like whether tea or not taking tea, like what effects that has had on my muscle growth. I will say that when I was on tea, I feel like it was easier for me to work out, and it seemed like I gained a decent amount of muscle then. I don't know, it's just there's like too much going on, like as far as like changing stuff that I'm doing with fitness and changing like my diet and like doing cutting and bulking, and like there's just like so much happening that like my weight and my body fat percentage have changed in several directions and stuff over the last few years. So it's just really hard for me to say what of that is from tea and what isn't. Also, because I wasn't on tea for super long and also was never on it for super long consecutively, I never really got like a huge amount of redistribution. I may have just not been on it long enough for that to happen because that can take a while. So there's really no way for me to know like if I were on tea for several years, like maybe I would have had a lot more shifting happening or a lot of muscle growth or something, but I don't know. Also, another thing to keep in mind here is my age. I'm 37. I'll be 38 in a couple of months. So all my changes could be significantly different from somebody who's a lot younger, just because of like natural hormone stuff and other body stuff that changes when you age. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Another thing people asked a lot about was emotional changes. I never really got like super significant emotional changes on tea. I never got where I was like angry a lot or where I had trouble crying. I've heard a lot of people say that they wanted to cry, but they just couldn't. I really never had that. I'm not like a huge crier in general. Like I don't typically like actually cry a lot. But it's not uncommon for me to just tear up a little bit from like getting emotional about something, from like, I don't know, watching a TV show or even like seeing something like really nice online or like something really like moving or whatever. And that still happened to me all the time when I was on tea. That never really like changed at all. And I still felt like a lot of emotional ups and downs. I still felt like pretty much just as emotional. The only things that really kind of I noticed were maybe like I felt more like I didn't put up with as much. I didn't have as much patience for things. But part of that could also be that I was just kind of more confident at that point and more, I don't know, just kind of like felt better about myself. And so I don't know really like what if that could have been tea and what if just like from an indirect effect of tea from making me more confident. So after not being on tea, also haven't really noticed any difference. I have had a lot of ups and downs this year, and especially the last few months have been really hard on me. I haven't been really doing that well in a lot of ways. It's been very roller coastery. I've had a lot of good things happening as well, but it's just been very overwhelming and I've had some breakdowns and stuff. But I'm not going to get into all that in this video. But anyway, none of that is from being off of tea. It's just my life, and that's just like emotional stuff. That's my life. But nothing about stopping tea really like changed anything. I didn't really notice anything, and I don't feel like anything that's happened since then has been anything related to tea. So I don't really feel like I had any major emotional shifts either on or off tea. All right, pals, this is the part where I'm going to get real personal and talk about bottom growth, which, if you don't know, is a very euphemistic way of talking about the growth of a very personal body part that happens when you take testosterone. So I'm going to put a timestamp here that you can skip to if you don't want to watch this, and if we are related in any way, then I really encourage you to skip this part because it's very personal and I would feel a lot better if you didn't watch it. But anybody else who thinks this will be useful, then here you go. I'm still gonna have a hard time talking about it because it's just kind of a weird topic and I don't want to be too super personal and freak anybody out or anything, but I did have some bottom growth when I was on tea. When I stopped taking tea, I think it did get a little bit smaller. It's a little bit hard for me to tell because it's not something that I look at that often and it's not something I think about that often. So it's not like I had like a huge frame of reference of like what it looked like before. So like trying to remember things and like different, I don't know, like exactly what it was like at different points is just kind of weird. I think it is smaller, but it's not back to where it was before I took tea. The sensitivity in that area is also different. It became a lot more sensitive when I was on tea, and the way things felt was different. Now that I'm off of tea, it has changed again, but interestingly, it didn't just change back to how it was before tea. It actually has like become this kind of new thing, and it's like this different kind of sensitivity and like different kind of quality of the sensations that happen at the end of like sensitivity stuff. I'm trying to be very like dancing around the topic here, but it is different now, and it happens to be different in a way that I really like, so that's pretty cool. I don't really know what else to say about it because there's not so much I can really say without being more detailed, and I don't want to do that. So I did want to mention it though because it's something that not a lot of people talk about, and I think it's maybe interesting or useful for people to know what to expect, or know that there is something to expect, or know something could happen. I don't know. But yeah, there's that. So the last thing I have to talk about is actually not a change that's happened. It's just the last question that I got, or like the last, yeah, it was a question, I guess, in my previous video where I asked for those, was somebody asked, I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but it was basically like, do I still like think about going back on tea, or like, do I ever like feel tempted to go back on tea? Something like that. And the answer to that is yes. I have constantly felt the siren song of tea calling me since I stopped, and it's always been a very conflicted thing for me. In my 8 months on tea video, I talked a lot about how conflicted I felt about stopping, and it's always been like that, and it's kind of frustrating because there are so many things about being on tea that I really like, and I miss those things, and I also would like my voice to be a little bit lower, and I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff that would be nice to have if I were on tea, if I could just somehow magically control the things that I don't want to change, which is largely hair related. It is the hair growth, but also hair loss, because my mom's dad had a pretty receded hairline, and I don't want that to happen. And so I think that could definitely happen if I went on tea for long enough. So there are just things that make me not feel like I could be on tea for the rest of my life, or even necessarily for a super long time, because I just genetically am predisposed to have a lot of body hair and a lot of facial hair and possibly a receding hairline, and none of those are things that I want. So there's all of that, but then there are also all the things that I really like about being on tea, and it's neither choice is really a perfect setup for me. So either way I go, it's kind of like a compromise. One of the things that has kept me from going back on tea, other than all the things that I just mentioned, but like I have really felt very tempted to go back on tea, except that I knew that I wanted to make a however many months off tea video, and I hadn't done that yet. And so, like, I literally didn't go back on tea, partially because I wanted to be able to make this video and be helpful to people. So, that like literally is one of the reasons. Like sometimes I would be really tempted, and then I'd be like, but I haven't made my 6 months off tea video yet. And then that just kind of like went on, and I just never had a chance to make the video, but now I am. So, because of that, I have really been considering going back on tea for a little bit, possibly at a lower dose or possibly for a short time. I don't know. You know, I never know really how things are going to go. But like I said, that's kind of been how my whole transition has gone. It's always been something that I always want to feel like I can revisit my choices, and not because I don't know what I want or because I am like wishy-washy about things or that I'm like just like making random decisions without thinking about the consequences. It's completely the opposite of that, actually. It's that I want to be sure and I want to have time to process things and have time to, I don't know, kind of get used to things and assess things and know exactly what I'm getting into and make sure that I know the choices that I'm making, like what I'm actually deciding. So I know that doesn't work for everybody, but it is the best approach for me. And hopefully these videos have been helpful to other people who take that approach or who are just curious about it or thinking about it or whatever. And if there was anything that I somehow didn't cover in this probably super long rambly video, please do put them in the comments below and I will cover them. Either I will answer you in the comments or I will cover them in a future video. If I ever make another video. No, I will be making other videos. In a month or so, I'm probably going to be making a 2 years post-op video. I know it's amazing that it's been 2 years. So if you have anything you want me to talk about in that, any questions or comments or whatever, you can also leave them below. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my future content, which I promise there will be more of at some point. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss it when I do post something. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.